The world is changing. Inspiration is everywhere. It has never been so easy to connect, share, and bring people together. We're learning from others and finding the best in ourselves. Challenging our beliefs. Sharing our vulnerability. Overcoming our fears. Transforming ourselves so we can transform the world. How far can we go?
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is... This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Peter Diamandis, the entrepreneur, philanthropist, author, and world-renowned speaker. You are the founder of Singularity University, the X Prize Foundation, and Bold Capital Partners, a $250 million venture fund investing in exponential technologies. You started over 20 companies, written 3 New York Times bestselling books, and were named one of the world's 50 greatest leaders by Fortune magazine. Your latest book, Exponential Organizations 2.0, the new playbook for 10x growth and impact, looks at how businesses can grow exponentially by leveraging technology, innovation, and creativity. You believe there will be 2 kinds of companies at the end of this decade, those that are fully utilizing AI and those that are out of business. Ultimately, you think AI will create an extraordinary future where our greatest dreams can come true. Peter, welcome to London Real.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate the invitation. And this is one of the most incredible times to be alive. Every day I pinch myself at what I'm reading, what I'm seeing. We're living in the midst of a science fiction movie in one sense. Another sense, we're living at called the 99th level of the gameplay, right? The boss level for those who are gamers. And it's tough to predict where things are going. And we can talk about that, but the convergence of these exponential technologies are allowing entrepreneurs to reinvent the future every single day.
Yeah, and we have a lot of entrepreneurs watching. I'm one, you're one. So I really want to get into exactly what you put out in the book. You know, I had my ChatGPT moment like everybody else did. And, we both spent time at MIT, so we were technical, but I had never gone that deep into AI. And of course I did afterwards. So the last 6 months, I've used my platform to educate myself. I've had Mo Gaudet on the show. I know you've spoken to him, former Google.
Mo, yeah. Yep.
I actually had Mo 4 years ago when he came, or 5 years ago when he came with his happiness book. So I already knew Mo,
yes.
And I listened to his book, and then I got him back on. I've had Professor Max Tegmark of MIT, Professor Hugo de Garis, who wrote that book, The Art Elect War, and of course, Dr. Ben Goertzel on the show. We're also investing about $1 million into his new AI company. Peter, you've been talking about singularity for decades. I was just curious, why write your book now? And how did the ChatGPT moment change your view of the future?
So I wrote a book with my writing partner, Stephen Kotler. We'd written Abundance, Bold. And our third book was The Future is Faster Than You Think. That came out in 2019, just before the pandemic hit. And it was a look at how this decade, everything is accelerating and that the speed at which technology is accelerating is itself accelerating. All these things are coming together, right? Just to take a second and paint that acceleration of the acceleration. First of all, we've got more capital than ever before, right? Deployed more democratically, globally. We have the fact that the tech is becoming cheaper. So your ability per dollar to get access to compute or memory, or per dollar to get access to genome sequencing is skyrocketing, not just 10x or 100x. We're talking, a millionx, a billionx over it was 20 years ago. So for every dollar available, and there's more of that, there's more capability of technology. We then have more individuals, more brilliant minds being connected globally around the world. It used to be the people that were, in our classes at MIT, or were in our city, or we happen to know through our industry. Now you have access to the most brilliant minds around the planet instantly for free, right? So there's more intellectual capability and more money doing more things with it. And then you add this incredible sense of urgency, this what I call a massive transformative purpose. It's throwing fuel on the fire. So all these things are accelerating the rate of the acceleration we're seeing. And one of the things I wrote about in Exponential Organizations 2.0 with Salim Ismail is that we're going to see more progress in the decade ahead than we have in the entire past century. And so when you look at this incredible speed, it is blinding. And I mean, I was just, as we were just saying a few minutes before we hopped on this program, I was at MIT this past week visiting some dear friends on a new company, a new venture studio I'm creating there. And I was talking to one friend about how a new generation of technologies are coming out that will displace these generative transformer models, these these GPT models, and will be 100 or 1,000 times better than them. And then, literally not an hour goes by when another person saying, "Oh yeah, I've heard about those approaches, but this is going to blow that one out of the water." So it's this near the curve and agility and the ability to understand the fundamentals, sort of first principle thinking, that's going to be key. But we're going to see disruption after disruption after disruption. And how do you leverage that? The way I describe it, Brian, is how do you surf on top of the tsunami of change instead of getting crushed by it? So, that can either generate a sense of anxiety in people when I speak about this, or like awe and excitement, like amazing. Like I'm going to let go of that and I'm going to start on this next stream. I mean, my GPT moment probably prior to ChatGPT, but then definitely excelled by ChatGPT, was really the recognition that the Turing test had been completed and that we had just moved the goal line. In fact, another conversation I had at MIT this week was in when are we going to see AGI? And one of the guys I was there with, who's extraordinarily brilliant, has multiple PhDs. Says, listen, we have AGI. It came in 2020. I said, what? Because it came with the release of GPT-3. I'm clear about that. Is his opinion. And it will become evident by 2025. So what does it mean to the world, everybody listening here, if in fact we have artificial general intelligence, right? We know there's this concept of narrow intelligence, and this is Deep Blue winning chess. This is even, DeepMind's approaches to protein sequencing or playing Go. These are narrow AIs that are able to solve this particular problem. Artificial general intelligence is an AI that you can ask it to do anything, and it's generalized sufficiently. But the interesting thing is, okay, if in fact we have it by 2025, Ray Kurzweil, who's a dear friend, my mentor, we've started companies together, we started Singularity University together. Ray's prediction is that his prediction has been that by 2029 we'll have human level AI. And everybody used to think he's super, way ahead and optimistic. And no, it's 50 years later, 100 years later. Now people have all honed in on, yes, by 2029 we're likely to have AI. And many individuals, Elon included, are projecting, no, it's likely 2025. So regardless if it's 25 or 29, it's here, it's this decade. So what are you going to do? How are you going to prepare for it? It changes everything.
I've had people on both sides, Peter, some that say, well, the Mark Andreessen viewpoint that, look, people always worry that technology replaces jobs and then it creates the jobs. And then I've had people on the other side that say, look, this is completely different. And, Goldman Sachs came out recently and said 300 million jobs are in jeopardy because of AI. Where do you stand? Because, there's a lot of anxiety in the public. And when I first went down this route, I went to some dark places as well. I have two young boys, they're 6 and 7 years old, and I'm thinking about their teenage years, Peter, and I'm thinking they will have teenage years never experienced in 200,000 years of human history. Theirs will be so different than anything else. And so I obviously am emotionally involved, but what do you say about those those two sides that one say it will help us and one say it will replace us?
So let's drill down. I'm a dad of two 12-year-old boys, fraternal twins. And I think about the same thing. I'm clear that their middle school and high school will not prepare them for the road ahead. And that school needs to be reinvented. So I've been spending a lot of time. I put out 2 blogs a week at Diamandis.com. And I just wrote one on the future of reinventing high school. I'll probably have to do one on the future of reinventing college if college. Sure, we're going to be changing that significantly. There are utopian and dystopian. Both are true. They're not exclusive from each other. And let me break that down. First of all, do I believe we're going to have issues? Yes. Do I believe that the world is going to be extraordinary in the next 20, 30, 40 years? Yes. So how do I hold those two resonant in my mind? I do it by looking back at the last century. I think very few people would argue that between 1900 and 2023 that the world's gotten extraordinarily better, right? From a living standards standpoint. But even if you believe that during the past 123 years, I actually looked at this for my new book. I'm writing the next iteration of my first book, Abundance. Over the last 123 years, there have been 268 million deaths due to war and pestilence and famine, right? So we've had this incredible period of hardship, but yet still the world has gotten better at an extraordinary rate over the last 123 years. So are we going to have ups and downs? Are we going to have issues? Yes. Will the world get extraordinarily better in the process? Yes. So let's break AI down into 3 categories. So AI today, I would say, is incredible. It's the equivalent to that newborn child that you're cuddling and holding and is all love. And, if it's not screaming in the middle of the night, it's cuddly and fun. And we can use ChatGPT and we can use stability and stable diffusion, all those things, and have fun with them. And they're causing more upside than disruption. So that's phase 1. And I think if we were to stop development of AI today, it would be incredibly useful for the world. Still, one of the most useful tools ever. But then we're going to enter phase 2 and phase 3. Phase 2 is the next 1 to 10 years. And this is the phase during which AI starts to become disruptive. What do I mean by that? Well, we have the US elections coming up, and there's no question that in the US elections, we're going to start to see generative AI in the form of deep fakes and disruptions causing turmoil. We're going to see loss of jobs. I think the loss of jobs issue isn't going to be as big as people think. It's going to be definitely punctuating certain careers and jobs. I think we're going to have AI co-pilots. As a physician, you're not going to be diagnosing on your own. It's going to become malpractice to diagnose without having AI in the loop. And there's definitive good reasons for that. As a CEO, as a politician, as a lawyer, as an artist, as a writer, you're going to have your AI co-pilot supporting you. And we have that already to some degree. And they're going to be those jobs completely replaced by AI, but there will be upskilling opportunities. And so I think the job market will take care of itself. I think we're going to have universal basic income, right? UBI, where we tax robots, we tax the AIs that are displacing jobs, and we distribute that capital to individuals, and we allow those individuals to upskill themselves, educate themselves with that capital. There'll be terrorism. We will see the first Wall Street servers hacked by AIs or the first power plants, and there will be concern that comes from that. And we have to learn how to navigate that. It's going to be like a pandemic. And despite those negative things, the ability for AI to do the utopian things, help us once and for all enable cheap and available and plentiful, safe fusion to allow us to slay all diseases, to extend the healthy human lifespan, to provide every child on the planet the best teacher possible. This is from the Young Ladies Illustrated's primer from from Diamond Age, right? Neil Stephenson's work. But an AI that knows your child's favorite color, sports car, sports team, knows what they do know, what they don't know, and provides them a personalized education like you could not buy, right? And as we enter the virtual world and AI and VR and the metaverse combine and provide this immersive educational experience that is the best way for a human to learn from an experiential standpoint, not reading words on a page. AI is going to become your diagnostician and your surgeon, and all these things will tend towards a zero cost, right? It's a marginal cost for the best education, best health. These things are coming. Now, the third phase of AI is what we might call the artificial superintelligence, right? This is where AI now has become not 10x smarter than humans, but a billionfold smarter than humans. And what happens when we have that level of AI on the planet, and from billions to trillions, and there's no limitation. Limitation is energy and compute. But let's not go down that rabbit hole. The question is, will that AI be dystopian? Will it be the Terminator, Skynet, or will it be a benevolent entity supporting humanity, wanting us to be our best? And I think that's where the conversation is most important. I personally believe that the more intelligent a entity is, the more pro-life and pro-human life, pro-abundance it will be. I think there's no reason for AI to, crush humans, right? There's an infinite number of resources accessible. If you're a movie fan, on one end of the spectrum, there is Skynet and the Terminator. On the other end is Her, where in this movie, when the AI becomes super intelligent and basically gets bored of humans, it leaves and goes off to some other star system. And I think that's more likely. There's no reason. We are a crumb in a supermarket filled with resources in our universe, right? The Earth is a beautiful gem, but it's by no means unique in its availability of atomic matter and energy. So our job today, and these are conversations. So I do my podcast Moonshots, and I've just been like you. Mo Godat is a friend, and I love his thinking. And we're spending a lot of time together, focused on the alignment problem. And then Imad Mustaq, the CEO of Stability AI, and others, we've been having this conversation. How do you ensure that AI, the super intelligent AI, is aligned with us? Mo's framework, which he writes in his incredible book, Scary Smart, is probably one of the best. He says, we are giving birth to a new species, a new intelligence in AI. And he says, imagine, and I'm sure they had this conversation on London Real, when Superman landed on planet Earth, and he landed in Kansas and meant the Kent, was brought up by the Kent family, this family of loving individuals with good morals and ethics. He turned into a superhero. If he had landed in the Bronx in a drug lord's den, he would have probably become a supervillain. So it's your early days of learning. So as we are the parents of these generative AI models, what are we teaching these AIs? How do we give them the nutrition, the nutrients to be loving, kind, moral, ethical, super AIs that will be more the positive impact on humanity? So these are the conversations I think about all the time as a dad of 12-year-olds and as someone who's studying and writing and investing heavily in the future.
Peter, I'm just kind of curious, what has surprised you about the conversations you've had in the last 3 months with people about AI, whether it's politicians or fellow MITers or business people? Maybe some things that you thought you would agree on, and maybe some things you thought you would disagree on that didn't happen.
I think what surprised me is how much ChatGPT and its follow-ons have surprised the creators of ChatGPT. The emergent properties were not intuitively obvious when it was being built, right? That is fascinating. You imagine as a coder, right? And I've been a computer coder all my life, not recently in the last decade, but I was there coding in hexadecimal on 6502 microprocessors in the early days. These computers would do what you told them to do because it was very much hardwired. If A, do this, if B, do this. But that's not how these neural nets are working, and especially not how these large language models are working. They're exhibiting properties that were like, interesting, where did that come from? And that's surprising. What's also surprising me and surprising others is what's coming next, that there's a lot of improvement coming, and it's not linear. It is continuing to be exponential. And so I just met this one company that I'm meeting with the founders tomorrow because I'm so blown away by their technology that looks to be 100 or 1,000-fold more efficient on many different levels than OpenAI's GPT-4. So, wow, what does that mean? And then being told by another friend, well, actually, there's stuff that's going to be even blow that out of the water. So the speed is incredible. I think what surprised me as well is how this isn't front and center conversation where it needs to be in the boardroom. I'm on stages around the world and I'm like, wake up, people. You have to understand that this is an extraordinary time, and the tools and how you think about this and how do you prepare for it and how you reinvent your business. So this is what I spend a lot of my time thinking through. So anyway, a lot of that surprising me.
I mean, the White House obviously, summoned the leaders there. I think they just came up with an agreement. The Senate had obviously, Sam there and a few people talking about it. A lot of the corporations are talking about it, but in your mind, they're not really engaging or seeing how fast and how accelerating this and how disruptive this would be.
Yeah, I think this needs to be an ever-present conversation of increasing percentage of one's time, because the impact is disproportionate to everything else. Talk about not only the elections but the global economy, right? There is, whenever we have a revolution, and this will be a revolution, economic revolution, a societal revolution, a workforce revolution, an intellectual revolution, it generates turbulent flow. And then it settles out into a new capability. We saw this with the Industrial Revolution, and we've seen this with the early computer revolution. We've seen it over and over again. And the challenge is that, or the advantage of previous revolutions are that they took place over centuries or decades or years versus months. And our systems of governance and we humans want stability.
To continue watching the rest of the episode for free, visit our website londonreal.tv or click the link in the description below.